Grog.
Hey everyone, it's the Sideshed Podcast with me, Peter Fickling. Joined as always by Kerry Walbis and Matthew Weir. I wasn't around last week. I listened intently as Matthew and Kerry met for the first time in the flesh. They now know what each other smells like. I still have no idea what what fragrances they can produce. But guys, you didn't even mention me last week. I was just ghosted completely.
Anyway, Matthew, you did say something about what I smelt like, didn't you? You liked
I
my
did.
perfume.
When you arrived in Bar of Soap, I told you smelt fantastic, and then you started applying more of it in front of me.
I did. Yeah.
Anyway, hey Kerry, how you
I'm
doing?
good, thanks. I
Missed you. I missed you this week.
I know, babe.
No, this room's just filling up with vomit. I'm at ankle level now. It's gradually going to rise. When you start hearing bubbling noises, that's me drowning in my own disapproval. But
I expect you had a lovely week off.
I did. I didn't listen to any of the Archers at all for the whole week. But it wasn't kind of like I didn't set out to do that. I was just it was pandemonium and so I've listened. I had the whole thing. This whole week has just been a kind of fever dream of Archers, catching up on everything. And of course, the most useful tool was listening to you guys. And I thought you did a fantastic job.
Is the reason you didn't listen to the Archers because you listened to the Cider Shed pod 5 times, carving our names into your chest, kind of Robert De Niro style from Cape Fear?
No, the first thing was I was kind of congratulations for being here because I think your blood was about 50% proof when you did the recording, wasn't it? What was it, 5 bottles of wine you'd had?
Well, the night before.
Yeah. During the recording, I had 1 beer and Matthew had none.
There's no way you both sobered up since the night before.
I was feeling a little bit tipsy the next morning, and I didn't really know what I had coming ahead of me. I thought I had like a full afternoon's work, but my schedule had changed, and I realized I only had to teach 1 class on a Friday. And when they told me that, I fist pumped in front of reception at school and said, "That's the best news I've ever heard."
Yeah, it was odd doing it in the morning. Was it in the morning? Yeah, it was morning, wasn't it? Because I was drinking at 11:30 or whatever it was. That lovely, lovely icy cold beer that I had. It was very sunny outside. We were together in Porto. Honestly, meeting Matthew was bloody marvellous. Porto is wonderful, as I said last week, and it's weird being back home. And I really look forward to the 3 of us doing that somehow, somewhere.
It's going to happen eventually, isn't it? I mean, Matthew has done a fantastic job over the last 6 months of selling Porto to me, but then you just took it up to a whole nother level. It was kind of Warbis vision on Twitter, kind of like me and a it's not, what's it called, pinchas in Portugal, Matthew?
What are you talking about?
The equivalent of tapas.
The pinchos, the little snacky things that you eat.
Yeah, so it's a Kerry with some pinchos, Kerry with an elegantly sized glass of wine, looking over a beach. Kerry, it was all very well done.
It's a great place. You've got to go, Peter.
Yeah, I've only been to. I think I might have mentioned this ages ago, but I've only been to Portugal as a kid, so it's on that list of countries that I have a kind of, a very sort of meager sort of understanding of. Definitely not. I when I say I've been to Portugal, it's kind of technical rather than kind of like any kind of real understanding. But I would like to go.
I will say before everyone Portuguese tries to lynch me that like pinchos you can have, but it's here it's more petiscos that they use. So you can have pinchos when you go up to like Bilbao and places like that in Spain, but it's petiscos here.
It was weird sitting in a country where I knew no words of the language. When I go to Spain or France, I know some of those languages, but I knew nothing.
You might have got by on some French, on some Spanish.
I said obrigada a lot.
Yes, that'll get you by.
Yeah, and then ciao, and that was it. It was abysmal, to be honest with you.
Well, you would. I mean, where you were staying would normally be very touristic, and it was a bit. I mean, I don't mean that in that it's like a tourist trap. I mean, normally that area has tourists in it, and I found that after 3 years of living in the deep south of Brazil, you have to speak Portuguese or learn how to speak Portuguese because the person in the shop or the cafe will not speak English as a rule. But here,
it was
fine. The person will you'll speak Portuguese to them and they'll speak back to you in English. It's kind of a pity move.
watch as I leave the gearbox in the middle of the road, crunching through the gears to insert a really bad segue. Well, it's a shame that Stella and Pip couldn't have shown the same level of appreciation for what a bit of kindness will do in communications.
Oh, yes, the clash of the titans, that was, wasn't it? They were both moaning about the other one when actually they were sort of describing themselves.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's a very good point.
I did. When Pip said she treated me like a servant, I was like, isn't that what you do to everybody else?
That cropped up later on in the week, didn't it? When she was sort of moaning to Josh,
That's when
Mm.
she said it.
and Josh barely had to say anything.
Yeah, they were both arsey with each other, but I still think I mean, I hate Pip, definitely. Stella's too new to get arsey yet, and she's just come in arsey, arsey, arsey immediately, really. Bit
She's the queen
rude.
of arse, isn't she? She's come in
Yeah,
and arsed all over the place.
yeah. It's not nice, is it? It's not nice to hear. Also, she doesn't really speak in normal sentences. It
Example?
don't say that. I wrote it down on Monday. That was my first note on the Monday episode. Stella does not speak in normal sentences. Just that it's very over complex. And this isn't against the actress. I love her.
Mm.
She has very sort of busy sentences. It's not just because she's dealing with farm technological terms. It's something about how she delivers her sentences is like no one normal would speak. That's my opinion.
I know what you mean. It's very deliberate and a little bit offensive, isn't it? The way she tackles everything.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Maybe she's been spoilt in her previous positions, and
Mhm.
I get the impression that she hasn't had many people say no to her,
Yeah.
and she's bristling now with what was it Brian described as our funny country ways. And she was
Get
like,
used to our funny way.
your weird incestuous practices, you mean?
She does say, every single time someone kind of offers a bit of context, she always says, "Well, I have worked on a big farm before. Well, I have worked in a family farm
Mm,
before. Well, I have done this before," and it is a sort of an insecurity that you see a
mm.
lot when with colleagues of a certain type.
Yeah, but how she's really wanting to smash that coziness down, isn't she? She's like, oh yeah, like you just said, it Matthew. She said it all sounds a little incestuous, and we're going to have a rethink about this cozy arrangement. She's not happy with them all being interlinked, and she certainly won't be happy with the fact that Pip has sort of gone, no, see ya.
Were you not over the moon when she said that? Did you not think bloody brilliant? Someone's going to kind of represent us and sort of start to tear into some of the,
I
the.
did, but it was Pip. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't. There's some. Oh God, I'm going to make enemies here. I quite like Pip in a way. I know her voice winds people up. I quite like it, but I did not. The thing that really turned me against Pip in recent times was when they shat on Rex. I didn't like that.
Mm,
But overall, yeah, she's they do treat people quite appallingly.
they
But
do.
that's a trend on the Archers, isn't it?
Do you mean you
And
like Pip as a sort of being a character in the Archers, or do you actually really like her as a
as being
character?
well, isn't that I like her as I don't like the nature of her character, but I
Oh,
like
good.
her being the Archers.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. That's all right then.
I can separate the two.
That's allowed. Yeah, yeah, I get you. Okay.
And she's good at it. She's good at being annoying because you just have to look at Twitter whenever she shows up and everyone starts having a shit fit.
I
Yeah.
think I think the characteristic that she has that annoys people, well, annoys me anyway, and a few of the characters have actually weirdly. Martin Gibson kind of revert, went against type on this one, is where it's always the relentless excuse. Well, it's just business, or it's that's the bottom line. Like
Mm,
they seem to. Pip seems to let herself get away with anything, including the Rex sort of debacle. According to the fact, it's what's right for the farm, or it's what's right to make money. And it's kind of like, no, Pip, you can't be the family farm, the scion of the family farm, and also be this ruthless businesswoman. It's too blurred.
yeah. Has she got any friends, I wonder?
Well, she's made one. I mean, that's
Do you know what? I reckon this might be one of those where Pip and Stella end up actually being friends.
Oh, what they accidentally get drunk at something, and they have a sort of heart to heart and realise that they are birds of a feather.
Yes. Yeah, at some point down the line.
Brian didn't do the greatest of jobs trying to sell Ambridge, Pip, etc., and Brookfield, and they were like, well, do you know what? David took over that time I was trampled by a herd of BSE infected cows. And then there was that time Pip got the cattle infected with IBR, and she was totally fine about that. And you could see Stella was like, what the f have I got myself into here? Can
Yeah,
I go back to Oxfordshire?
because she went, I didn't meet either of those two. I met Pip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait till you see who spawned her.
There was a lot of hinting again, because I just suddenly, you guys just made me think about it. There has been a lot of gradual repositioning of David as a kind of a more avuncular figure, as he's sort of softening and starting to hand things over to the kids, and kind of like he's lost a few battles with Ruth and Pip about how the farm's going to be run, and he's kind of been a bit more jolly around the. Do you think he's been? You know how sometimes the older characters kind of are slightly reinvented, like Bert and Bert and Joe were, they kind of like reinvented for their old age. Do you think sort of David is being tweaked and Pip's taking over his role in the village, so to speak?
Yeah, maybe, because there were quite a few tweets saying incredulously, David's in a good mood. Why? Why is he in a good mood? Because it's so unusual.
It was like 6 months ago when him and Ruth were talking about what to do with the farm. He was like, never go against the family, Ruth. Like he was getting really shitty with her, wasn't he? And now suddenly everything's fine. Just do what you want. Just,
Yeah. I did love Brian's saying when he said something like, I'm trying to remember that good old farming saying. And Stella said something crass like, get out of my field.
yeah, get off my land.
That's it. And Brian said, live like you'll die tomorrow, farm like you'll farm forever. And I thought, are they two James Bond film titles? It sounded like.
Is podcasting too new an art form? Art form sounds too grand, but too new an art form for kind of some kind of simple aphorism. We should see if we can come up with one, kind of like a podcasting maxim.
Such as?
Yeah, waffle, like it's the last day you'll ever live. Record, I don't know.
Yeah. What would it be? Never on a document write your topics on the same day as the recording.
Yeah, this could unravel quite quickly. Does Matthew really want to be locked into another WhatsApp versus Google Docs debate between you and me, Kerry? On air?
No. I'll
well,
just arm wrestle you later, Peter.
Exactly. Yeah.
We could have. Oh no, it's terrible. Cast fast, die young. No, that's bad. Pod splod. No, got nothing.
Well, I mean,
are you all right, Matthew?
Sodomy, podomy.
No, let's go with that. I mean, that'll do. So what we just said was, what we just tried to come up with was appalling, but I think we all agreed that it was very well written this week. And Kerry, you said it was your namesake, didn't you?
Yeah, it was Kerry Davies' week this week. Yeah, I only found that out today, I think. But yeah, it was a cracker, wasn't it? There were loads of very funny bits, I think.
He's. I mean, obviously, he's like the big swinging D in the sort of like the Archer's world, isn't he? He's like the most famous face from the editorial team. You can tell a Kerry week sometimes. I think I often get it wrong. I think we sometimes get it wrong. But this week, it did. All of his little flourishes were there, weren't they? Sort of little slide jokes,
exactly.
A kind of general warmth. Like Alan was written very well this week. The conversations between him and Jazza were quite sort of well-rounded and likable.
Yeah, I think he packed an awful lot in, Kerry Davies. I've got so many pages of notes this week because there was a lot of good things. There were a lot of good things to comment upon, I felt. And like you say, he always puts in a few, not double entendres, but funny bits that you think, oh, that's a Kerry thing. Like Ruth and David were weighing bullocks.
I was going to say that, like, the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, we're hearing a new destination now, bullocks, because Pip said to Stella, sorry, Mum and Dad are away in bullocks. I was like,
no, they were weighing bullocks. They weigh David's testicles every 11th of October.
No wonder he's happy. That's been his day. Yeah,
a lot of silage.
Yeah. Have you ever weighed your bollocks?
No, do you know what?
Call me old-fashioned.
I mean, how would you do it? How would it would be anyway? I mean, you know, there's the. I mean, it would have to be water displacement technique, wouldn't it? You'd have to. That would be
Oh,
the
that's
only way of
clever.
doing it. And then you'd have to average. You know, you'd have to find out the average density of the human testicle. That would be your best bet. So, Matthew, next week we need our statistics.
Yeah, get back to us next week with your numbers, guys.
That was eerily detailed, Peter, I have to say.
No, well, I mean, do you know what? I'm going to be a little bit boastful because otherwise I'll sound like a deviant. That
You've got
was
enormous
spontaneous.
bollocks.
I did. I don't. Do you know what? I don't know anymore. I mean, it's been so long since I've seen anyone's but mine and Cyrus's. I really don't know what constitutes big ones anymore. So and you can't. The films are no real guide, are they? I mean, that's no.
But what films are you watching?
Only Highlander. And if you've not seen the Highlander R cut, Matthew, it's a very different movie.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
We'll have to get Kerry on that, and she can live tweet about it. Oh, Matt, if there is an adult version of Highlander out there, we should all download it and all live tweet it at the same time.
That's me and Matthew handing in our resignation, Kerry. If there's an R-rated Highlander out there, that's a whole new podcast, and you'd be very welcome. I think I can say that, can't I, Matthew?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was another bit as well. I've just thought when Alan said to Amy, when I saw him bearing down on me after the service, I had a feeling I might be a while. And that was about Arthur Shillington.
Arthur Shillington, the edgelord of Edgeley, wasn't he?
Yeah, the church warden.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just funny little lines like that where you think, aye, aye.
I thought they were even mining that idea that everyone else is like, Aim is so fucking boring. Because this week, I mean, first of all, unforgivable. If you think Knocking on Heaven's Door is a Guns N' Roses original, off. For starters. Get in the fucking bin straight away. And then then we've talked about how boring she is. And then she started throwing in things like, ooh, that sounds... I might go and rearrange my sock drawer. That sounds more interesting. I'm like, you probably do that for shit,
Yeah.
She probably thinks that's really exciting.
Is she written dull on purpose?
Yes.
She is.
No, I don't think so.
No?
Because I wrote down some of her lines and I thought, on paper, they look okay. And I think it's the delivery. I'm sorry, but I do think it is.
We do have a sort of unspoken policy, don't we, of almost never criticising the actors.
Well, one theory is that she's meant to be playing someone who's run down after working for the NHS during COVID, which that's fine. But, I get run down. I have a sleep and then I talk like a human the next day.
Exactly. I did write down that terrible Bants thing that her and Alan were supposed to do, like the Guns N' Roses Bob Dylan thing.
Yeah.
And then there was another bit of it as well. What was the other Bants thing? Oh, I need to look at my notes. But literally her delivery was dread. Oh, it was about the motorbike. She kept trying to do jokes, didn't she? She said, when you tell Usha, make sure you tell me in advance so I can buy popcorn and book a front row seat. That is something I would pay good money for.
To be honest, Kerry, you gave it more passion.
But, written down as a line, you could get someone to say that, couldn't you? And go, oh, make sure you tell me in advance. I'll buy popcorn because that's something I'd pay good money for.
Jazz was there saying, like, I chromed the mudguard, and she was like, ooh, fascinating. I was like, I don't think you're in a position to say that.
Matthew, a new character arrives in the village next week, and you suddenly spot it's acted by Miss Kerry Warbis. Describe that character. Who is... I mean, it can be typecasting. It can be... You can sort of see what kind of range Kerry would have. Who is this character who's coming in?
I think an Earth Mother type to rival Kate.
I wasn't expecting that, right?
No,
Earth Mother, Dream Catchers, right? Okay.
Yeah. With a penchant.
Friends of Pat, then.
Yeah, penchant for fortified wine, and always willing to get a karaoke going in the bull.
Yeah, I do. I'm just imagining the editor saying, "Kerry, we can do the wine with the Foley artist. No need."
Oh God, I don't drink that much. This whole do I, Matthew?
No, I can testify to that.
Who's going to play in the first 30 seconds of last week's pod? I can do it if you want.
Yeah, one beer at 11:30. No, it's some sort of myth around me that I have to run with, I think.
Well, I mean, it's like the pork scratching thing. I mean, you wouldn't be alive if these kind of caricature, if you were the caricature that we make you out to be. So it's all part of the myth and legend.
Are pork scratchings under threat from the supply chain?
That's a good point. Oh my good lord, Kerry.
Oh, I can make my own, can't I? Don't worry.
Just going to get out there and scratch yourself.
Out of humans, if necessary.
Just wander the streets of Brighton.
I saw Jay Rayner in the week.
Oh, yes.
I landed back from Porto, went straight to Jay, and there was a picture on his slideshow behind him when he was doing his talk of him, who I quite lust after, and he was lying on a bed of pork scratchings. Imagine, I nearly exploded.
You went straight from Gatwick when you came back from Porto to go and see him.
Yeah.
And you had a chance to ask him a question, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And the question wasn't, why have you blocked at Mr. Weir on Twitter?
Oh, sorry. I did say I would ask him.
Yeah, you did. I have no idea why he blocked me. I've never had any knowing interaction with him ever, and he's blocked me.
I think I was so mesmerised by his presence right in front of me that I asked a silly food question.
You do a good line in sarcasm, Matthew, on Twitter, and it is quite possible that maybe just at a glance something could be misunderstood.
Wouldn't I find that in my search though? I didn't find any tweet that had ever involved me and him in the same.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a little strange. Which makes me think I was included in a tweet.
Yeah.
That might have been chef based back in the day, and he just blocked everybody in the tweet. But anyway, fair enough.
Be that kind of man.
No, me either. But to be honest, I'm done with him.
His mother's fascinating. When Kerry said she was going, I did a bit of research about his mum, and I want to read her book. She sounds like she had the worst childhood imaginable. Just an awful. She had an awful mother who subjected her to quite extraordinary amounts of emotional cruelty. So
shit.
So she's that cliche of the person who, rather than becoming the the abused becomes the abuser, they kind of flip the other way and become sort of like almost defined by their need to compensate. Which you can sort of see in her life, can't you?
Yeah.
And also the fact that she was a practicing nurse, when she was running her, when her business sort of as an agony aunt kicked off. So anyway, she's unlike so many other journalists. I'm not trying to slam journalists, but she really knew her stuff anyway. But
yeah,
interesting woman.
Should we talk about another wonderful person?
Nerves. Yeah.
Well, speaking of interesting women.
No, Amy. One last thing on Amy is that she was just floating around saying these little comments, but that's interesting and blah blah blah. And then when Jazza came round to say, I'm not going to sell the bike, and Tracy feels bad about it, she chipped in with, I should think so. And at that point, I was just like, piss off, Amy.
Yeah.
What are you here for?
I know.
Was she a member of Dross? She wasn't, I assume. I assume they just named the band after her.
Yeah.
Also, she went, sorry, one more thing. She took a personality test.
Well, I wondered when we would mention that. That was to see whether she had one, obviously. Yeah.
I thought Alan was going to say, but what if you take the test, love, and it comes back negative?
In some small defense of Amy, not really a defense of Amy, but just a peculiarity of the show, they do have a kind of trope that they lean on, which is the parents get sort of mauled by the children as light comedy. And it's that sort of comedy that's very hard to write and very hard to do well, which is not a criticism of Kerry Davis this week. But you know what I mean? Like, unless you're part of the family, it's difficult to kind of like, understand all the intricacies or kind of fully emotionally link into it. So I kind of feel like the actress and the character were not particularly well served by, them going back to that kind of hackneyed old technique. Or am I clutching at straws?
No, I think you're right. It was
Because you guys mentioned you just made me think about it when you were mentioning the sort of the teasing about the motorbike. Any normal daughter would turn around and go, "Well, you've already got one. It's a bit mental, but knock yourself out." It wouldn't be some kind of the door. I just don't sort of feel like especially with Alan, such a gentle man. You can't really imagine his daughter talking to him like that.
No, exactly. And especially as she's just sort of nervously said, "I'm giving up midwifery," and he was super duper supportive. For her to then
Yeah.
go, "You've got one too many motorbikes already."
Yeah, and when he finally mentioned it to Usha, they were like, "What did Usha say?" I felt like Alan was going to say nothing because she doesn't exist.
Yeah, and also, sorry to get super pedantic about it. If it's his first motorbike, it makes sense because now he's an inexperienced man about to get on a 1970s motorbike and rattle around a bunch of lanes where you've got,
Mm.
Chelsea has run people over. Nick ran people over. These are dangerous roads. But it's not. It's his second bike. He's been cycling. He's been motorbiking for years. It's just not a big deal. Anyway, sorry, I'm overthinking it. But there you go.
Yeah, the personality test thing, going back to that. What do you think of those? Alan mentioned, "Oh, I did a Myers-Briggs years ago." And she sort of went, "Oh, it's very interesting. I've now got a short list of careers that I'm going to now apply for," as if having done a test, she's thinking, "I'll do those 5 or apply for those 5 things," without actually thinking, "What do I like doing? What do I want to do myself?" She had to do a test to find that out. I don't know.
I would assume, Kerry, after 25 years at a big company, that you would have had something
I
like that
have.
done to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I have. Think they're
Did you
all
have
a
the
load of shit, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That's really, truthfully, it was 27 years as well, even longer. Um, but no, yeah, we periodically had to do Myers-Briggs and other similar things like that, and I just think, no, not credible at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like any therapy, isn't it? Or any of these things where, if you engage in it, even if it's not a completely accurate or worthwhile science, it
Mm.
holds enough of a mirror up to you that you can then get some useful deducements out of it. But for someone like me and you, I don't, I'm so narcissistic and self-absorbed. I don't need another opportunity to have a look at myself. It's almost continuous process anyway.
I
But
just think the
yeah,
questions are ridiculous. It's really sort of too nuanced to pinpoint anything. You could do it the next day and forget what you'd said the day before and come out differently. Uh, I don't know, like you say, I think it's if you don't know yourself at all, maybe it's useful. What do you think, Matthew? Have you ever done one of those?
Before I say anything,
You love
Kerry,
them.
no.
Mm.
You were breaking up for me then.
Oh,
there was a little bit of crackling.
Not pork crackling either.
oh, sorry. Don't know why.
I think it's an internet speed thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
I've never taken one of those tests,
Okay.
so I wouldn't really know.
Well,
Yeah.
we can roll that into the quadruple listener figure Matthew special episode. We'll do
Where he
a
does
Myers
one.
Briggs test on Matthew.
I mean, I've always felt very naturally suited to the right careers that I took at the times in my life.
Mm.
There was very much a point where I was like, right, don't want to be a restaurant chef anymore. Don't want to do like head chefing, sous chefing. Want to go out and do private stuff, be in control of my own hours. And then there was just a point where one day I was like, I don't want to chef anymore. And
You
yeah,
didn't
so
need a test to tell you that. I wonder what the
no.
5 things were that Amy was told she'd be good at. What do you think they are? It's going to be something like, I'm trying to think.
Stand-up comedian, child boy.
Samaritans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kerry, you said you thought she might be good at Samaritans. Did you say that, or did I dream it?
You said that.
No, you said it.
What are you on about?
Didn't you say that a couple of weeks ago?
No.
Oh, I'm going to have to go back and listen to the episodes now.
I would not have said that. I honestly haven't said she'd be a Samaritan. I can't think what she'd be. Maybe one. I don't know. A job where you don't speak at all. That's what she'd be good
Well,
at.
whatever job it's going to be something in a village, isn't it? Because they brought her back, and we're stuck
Yeah.
with her. And so there'll be some ridiculous Ambridge style coincidence. Oh, I've got it. It's all happening at once. Lillian is going to stick her nose into the stable. She's going to decide that they need to build up rather than just continue. Shula will reluctantly go along, and Amy will somehow be involved in the new stable shenanigans.
Oh
Ah.
God, really?
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's the kind of thing that they do, isn't it?
Alice is going to be in there, isn't she? I would presume.
And is there then going to be a tension because, a tension because Amy is getting involved with Chris?
That's an excuse for her to bump into Chris all the time because, you know, he'll be popping by to kind of like show off his metal trees and occasionally put a horseshoe on a horse. And, you
Yeah.
know, that'll be where the magic happens.
I mean, if Amy's in the stables only talking to horses, that's fine. If no people have to hear her.
Only if you're not a horse. If you're a horse, Kerry, have a very different. I mean, how has Amy so quickly taken over from Adam and Shula as like Matthew and Kerry's number one?
Only because
hated
Adam hasn't
character?
been in it for a while.
Adam, if
Really.
Adam was in this week, he would trump Amy, would he?
Yeah.
Who's the bigger log, Kerry?
Adam.
All day long?
Yeah, I mean, Amy's a sapling at the moment. She's going that way.
Yeah, but she's like bamboo. She's growing fast. There's, you know, she's gonna.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's gonna be. I think she's gonna be at the stable. So I mean, I don't often have confidence in my predictions, but I'm feeling pretty good about this one. I think that makes sense.
I've just thought of a good segue. Speaking of jobs and working, what about Blake?
That was nice.
Yeah, and he's doing the odd jobs around the house. And which day was it? Oh yeah, it was on Monday. You know, when Stella was saying there's a shortage of labour, they need to get the maize in, they need to spray off some pasture, drill some fields. I was just thinking, Blake, get him in there doing some work.
Yeah.
Did I mishear, or did Stella say, I'm going to put tractor driver Paul on my to-do list?
Exactly what she said.
She did.
It couldn't have sounded weirder. It was very, very odd. But I do, I mean, the Martin Gibson thing was heartwarming, but you can just see the car crash coming, can't you?
The minute he was interested, it was all weird, and you thought, what's his ulterior motive immediately, didn't you? And then you think, he's going to do this for some sort of publicity of some kind.
Try and get Blake in the paper.
Yeah.
So that's going to be it, isn't it? Jazz is going to flip because he's going to do it for Blake. And then you're going to see the sort of the totally cynical actions of, what's his name?
What do we know about Martin Gibson? Is he that Machiavellian or not?
I thought he was always supposed to be he was very clearly described the other day by Justin as being a little man, having little vision, no kind of broader scope for in terms of how he approaches business. And so I think that was obviously a setup so that, like we'd be like, oh, this is a different side to him. And we're seeing a sort of, Martin, the free thinker. I mean, even if he is doing it for cynical reasons, it is a kind of it does fly in the face of Justin's description.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not actually sure, but there was a bit of a whiff about it, though.
Yeah, I think the main whiff was from the fact that Brian had clearly pissed on his shoes because he was like, "Sorry about your shoes, Martin. If you'd have warned me, I would have given you wellies."
It was a bit weird how little he seemed to know about running a farm.
Yeah, he said to Jazza, and then it'll free you up to do whatever it is you do with the pigs. It was like when Prince Charles meets normal humans, wasn't it?
Everyone runs their car on old wine and chocolates, Matthew. That's a perfectly normal way to run your car. Everyone's doing it over here now. Actually, they should be doing it over here now. It's probably, be quite a, good idea if you can get your car.
Well, I mean, by Christmas, by Christmas, all you'll have is chocolates because that's all you're stocking up on early, isn't it, for Christmas?
Yeah, it's going to be.
Very funny, Matthew. Just because you're over there having a lovely time.
Listen. You can have the last laugh because I'm meant to be coming to England for Christmas
you fool.
to survey the wreckage.
Well, my Christmas catering is someone else's problem. We have our family holiday this year is staying in a hotel for Christmas. It's going to be absolutely glorious.
Are you going to stay in a Harvester?
I mean, it might. I mean, the people who run it might be part of the Harvester, organization. I don't know, but
My dear friend Andy, who listens to this podcast, he went to a Harvester for Christmas dinner on the insistence of someone within his family. He didn't order Christmas dinner. He ordered the mixed grill on the basis that the chef couldn't cook 7 things badly, but on that day he outdid himself.
There you go. When you say family, Peter, do you mean you, your lovely wife, and your son as a 3?
yeah, just the 3 of us.
Okay, good. Okay.
So just I adore my extended family, but
Mhm.
there is something very nice, to be
Yeah.
able to at the end of a Christmas day be elsewhere.
So do tell us afterwards what Grey Gables was like.
I feel very anyway. I won't bore you with the place we found, but for once I'm excited. I'm not someone who looks forward to things. I am.
That sounds very optimistic of you.
Oh, blimey.
But I'm one of life's pessimists and misanthropes. But I'm quite excited.
You should hear our pre-pod meetings.
Come on.
Peter never looks forward to anything.
No, I do. I mean, I do my best to be.
Come on, I'm getting a rise at you.
What's it called? The relevance was someone else is going to have to worry about what food I eat for several meals over Christmas, and that is, given the current climate, a bit of a relief.
It is, but you're a right cook man, aren't you? So have you got mixed feelings about that, or are you just literally thinking, "Oh no, this is so glorious that someone else is doing everything"?
Well, no, but I mean, so if you take the Archers as an example, I am not a Jennifer in the kitchen. I have no ambitions, or I'm not a well, who's it? The cake lady, Jill.
Cake lady.
I can't do big exciting. I'm a plodding, cooking every meal, kind of, getting food on the table kind of person. I don't do anything fancy.
Okay.
So if I'm missing out on cooking, I'm not missing out on doing a kind of like a big, Jenny style tada, where everyone kind of looks at my, as I pull a cloche up and there's a kind of turducken underneath. It's that's not me. So I'm not missing out at all to answer a very long-winded way. Yeah.
Lovely.
Thanks for mentioning turducken, by the way, Peter. Me and you have spoken about that before, haven't we, on WhatsApp? But it's an American partner of a friend of mine introduced me to turducken.
Isn't he in the Tory party and people want him to be the leader or something?
Probably. Do you know what turducken is, Kerry?
I do. Of course I do. It's got meat involved in it. It's like loads of creatures stuffed inside each other.
What am I thinking?
Kerry falls asleep every night going through her Meatopedia, her giant sort of like 15-volume leather-bound digest. Yeah.
Yep.
Skin-bound, and each page is like a different type of meat that you
crackling-bound book about meat.
Oh my God, that sounds marvelous.
Yeah, I've got the weirdest boner right now.
Shitting hell.
Talk. I mean, I thought that. Sorry, I'm not going to say that.
Okay.
I'm not going to say that.
How do we segue from Matthew's boner to something?
I'll just say what I was going to say. Someone, I can't remember who, suggested that Russ might have been aroused underneath his haircutting blanket.
Oh no,
but he was very, very happy, wasn't he? He wasn't Matthew happy, but he was very, very happy with the end result of Chelsea's work.
Yes,
and
he was.
I'm very excited about the Chelsea Russ double act.
Russ is superb. I love the actor. The delivery is amazing because he had that perfect combination of being superior but vulnerable in that situation. Lily was loving ribbing him about the whole thing, didn't she?
Till it backfired.
Yeah, exactly. She had a sulk on because Chelsea chose Russ to teach her rather than Lily, which I thought fair enough. I loved it when Chelsea went, well, he is an actual teacher and you just sell kitchens, don't you?
Yes, because earlier Lily had been going like, we don't sell kitchens, we sell dreams.
Yeah.
And then,
But and then of course, as is so often the case, like Russ might be a stuck up, slightly pretentious tit, but you then got to hear him teaching Chelsea. I don't know anything about teaching. I don't know anything hugely about dyslexia, but I was sold it quite well. It seemed credible that Chelsea was enjoying and getting his technique, and that he was, he's obviously a good teacher.
I think the best thing he did was he complimented Chelsea on the fact that, because she did that whole monologue, didn't she, about, and then this happened, then that happened, and then, oh, you never guess what, this happened. And he
Mm.
sort of went, well, you've just described something in a very vibrant and lively manner. So you clearly, he tapped into complimenting her on her skill of communication. And I don't know. I thought that was very smart of him and
Yeah.
genuine. It sounded genuine anyway.
And
I
it's
don't
also the sort of it's winning the war, not the battle, isn't it? Whichever way around it is. He's even if Chelsea loses marks for using colloquialisms or losing slightly clumsy language, her being engaged and excited and feeling her own potential is going to give her a better end result. So it's like good teaching just to get her enthused and feel confident, even if it's kind of like, even if Chelsea being fully Chelsea is never going to, sort of give the best, she's not going to become a prize winning barrister.
Yeah, his approach was better because Lily was sort of going, you've got to think about the marking grades or something, like wrong end of the stick.
yeah, he was going, and I don't really like this word, but he went holistic, didn't he? He was just saying like, she's expressing it. One of the things we always say in the school, like we're teaching Portuguese kids to speak English, is just let the kid talk. Let them make their own mistakes. Don't stop them. Don't interrupt them. Let them keep going. And at the end, we'll talk about what they said wrong. Don't
That
cut.
sounds like the mantra for a podcast.
Yes.
We were talking earlier.
Yeah, although I think there's 100 people screaming at the speaking out. No, you should stop talking. You should be interrupted.
No, absolutely not. I liked Chelsea's small talk while she was cutting his hair as well. So tell me about this gallery then. She was cutting his hair. Absolutely. Like, going anywhere nice on holidays, Russ?
For me, there was a kind of unspoken message. It was almost like, tell me about your pointless job that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Didn't he say something like, oh, I had a really difficult hanging? And she said, oh, that sounds painful.
That was one of those little jokes that was absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
Also, yeah, I mean, Chelsea had that big falling. First of all, she was full on for Johnny.
Yeah.
And then Johnny dissed biker girls because of Jade, and then apparently dissed a girl's hair because she took helmet off and had helmet hair.
He dissed Chelsea's hair, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she kind of didn't realise how sensitive he might be to her anxiety, of course.
She was a bit rough when she threw back in his face that he was losing his hair.
Yeah, at least I've got some or something.
But that was one of the things, I've said this before, where you can sort of feel the script editors, not the script writers, the editors have kind of marked out a plot, and you can imagine Kerry sitting down at the beginning of the week and going, I've got to get all this in. So somehow Chelsea's got to credibly fall for Johnny and then trash him and ditch him all in an episode. I mean, it was quite a rush, wasn't it? I mean, it was actually done about as well as it could be. But
yeah, I get exactly what you mean there, Peter. I agree. I was thinking about that too. It was crammed, wasn't it? And a bit like, what? Would she do that? But it had its purpose.
Do you think, asking you two now, do you think Ben and Rory, being of slightly older, but only slightly older age than Chelsea, do you think they have been as all over the place as her character before, and we don't notice it in such a pantomime way because of the accents? I'm talking about this class thing in the Archers again. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Ben was an arse when he went out with Rory that night when they went to the club.
Yeah.
But I feel if that had been Chelsea, we would have noticed it so much more. Whereas Chelsea, I don't know. It's all about that emotional intelligence as well. It's like they seem to set her up to get upset and angry a lot quicker because she doesn't seem to understand the complexities of the emotions that are going on.
I don't know if it's. I think it's. She's a chip off the old block, isn't she? And Tracy's very much the same in that she just says what she feels in that moment, the heat of the
And then,
moment, and I'm
yeah,
going
you
to
said last
express
week
myself.
she changes her mind immediately as well, like you
Yeah,
said.
yeah. So I think they are very expressive individuals, and I think she just says exactly what she's thinking and says it a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas Ben, so it's not necessarily just to do with the accent or class. I just think she's very vocal and expressive in the moment all the time, and Ben is less so.
I've always, as you know, 100% agreed with what Matthew was saying about sort of classism in the Archers, and I think I've made the point or agreed with you guys making the point on numerous occasions. But I do think that Chelsea is being written as a pantomime character, so it's very difficult to see where the general Archer's classism ends and Chelsea's kind of like fun buffoonery, which I'm really enjoying, begins.
Ah, you think she's being written as a pantomime
I
character?
I feel that, yeah, I feel like she's being written as a bit of a jokey character. Hopefully, they mature her.
They've done it with
That
Tracy.
That sounds. I don't know why that sounds
Like a
appalling to
cheese.
say it like that. Yes.
Get Helen on her. But yeah, I think maybe partly, perhaps, it's to do with the fact we've had a lot of her in a short amount of time.
Just to play devil's advocate here, this idea that you can flip flop. You can have someone like Brian bringing Jazza around a bottle of whiskey. The next week, he's having a go at Jazza in front of Neil, saying, "What's he doing here?" And then this week, he's saying to Martin Gibson, "Jazza's fantastic." It's just like, well, okay,
Yeah.
right. They're allowed to have their little emotional roller coasters,
Yeah.
and it somehow feels that it's excusable when it's the Aldridges or the Archers. When it's a Horrobin or a Carter, you're meant to think, well, Emma's gone off the rails again, hasn't
Well,
she?
you took the words out of my mouth. We're still hearing little sly mentions about Emma's embarrassing trawl around the village years later, and yet no one mentions the huge mistakes that some of the kind of the Archers, the Archers have made. And Brian and the Aldridges. You can imagine in a few years' time, Alice's alcoholism will be sort of just just quietly
I
dropped.
think, it's kind of already getting there, I think. I mean, if you've got Lillian saying, well, Alice's addiction persuaded me to give up the fags. Now let's open a bottle of fizz.
Yeah.
That's the lesson we've all learned.
Prepare the guillotine. That's what I say.
But I think Emma's low point was a particularly public, desperate, personal, I don't know, pit that she'd sunk into. It was so public, and she literally paraded herself around the village
I mean, that's from
in
our
a
point of view.
state. And I just think that, pardon?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just thinking that's from our point of view, we as listeners. But Brian poisoning the whole of the Am and being in the newspapers, and you can imagine it was national news. Farmer poisons, water course.
Yeah, I still think that's slightly detached, isn't it, than sort of parading physically around the village asking for stuff. And so I don't know, again, whether that's to do with her position in the village necessarily, as to do with the act of the low point being much more, not shameful. They're both shameful in different ways, but I just think there's something about wandering around the village crying, asking for money that is going to be something people don't forget.
I mean, it's lived. I mean, that was. I found that. I mean, obviously, it's just a silly soap opera, but I found that quite sort of almost scarring. If something in the Archers could scar me, that Emma going around the village was it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awful. We're still talking about it. It was really memorable. I almost forget that Brian did that thing with those chemicals. But
well, what a surprise, huh?
oh, I'm just falling into the groove of what I'm supposed to say. But yeah.
I think also there is this. I mean, there is that thing about addiction and stuff. No matter how overt what we heard Alice doing, she concealed it reasonably well. You know, I mean, Gavin found out. Obviously, Harrison found out because he had that encounter with her in the car.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it's been drip fed to a lot of other people in the village.
Yeah.
And they all know now. But yeah, she kept a lid on it for a while, or at least the Aldridges did their best to anyway.
Yeah. I think it was a cracking week. I think there were two coincidences that happened back to back, which felt a bit odd. One of which was Russ helping Chelsea and then going, right, I've now got to book a haircut. And her going, I can do haircuts. And
He used to go
then,
to like Borsetshire Bants,
oh
didn't
yeah,
he, or somewhere? Where was
Borset
it?
Barnett's.
Borset Barnet. That's it.
Yeah. That's now closed. And then Lillian and Shula having the drinks because Lillian had gone nuts about desserts because of giving up fags. And sort of saying, well, what you need is someone with some spare money who's into horses, who knows the situation. Oh, that's me. I was like, oh, really? That was in the same sodding episode. Those two things.
All I'm hoping for is they're going to go off on a ride together and both get thrown off a horse.
Oh, I mean, what? And then Shula dies. Lillian bumps her head, and we go on as kind of like a bouncer's dream episode where she goes back to Tiger. And we get a few glorious weeks of her being back in Tiger's arms. And I get Matt Crawford. Oh, I love Matt. Anyway,
Oh,
I miss him. He needs to come
yeah.
back. Get rid of Justin.
But to end on a high, I think Blake, bless him, is going to do okay, isn't he? I hope, unless Martin Gibson's a total wrong 'un.
Well, when Alistair and Jazza and Jim have finished making him totally deconstruct and rebuild Greenacres, he might have some time on his hands. Yeah. I like the way that like Blake is constantly in this horrible hostage situation where people are forcing tea on him. You know, Alistair was like, "Do you want another cup of tea, Blake?" And the fellow was going to say, "Like, no, 4 million's my limit, Mr. Alistair."
Mr.
And then
Alistair.
Because he was stuck with Lee, wasn't he? Before going, "Do you like your tea, Blake?
Yeah.
Is it the right colour?"
Yeah, Alistair was getting on my nerves, which I think he was supposed to.
He was supposed to. He was very, very awkward, wasn't he?
It was, yes. It was I mean, if it's a cliche for the middle class man to struggle to talk to the plumber or the electrician, but to talk to the former slave who's working on your bathroom, I think that takes it to the awkwardness to a whole nother strata.
Is there an opening for Blake to work at the vet practice and shadow Jakob?
Ooh,
I'd love
he
that.
really keeps saying how much he loves the animals, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Jakob would love to have someone as biddable as Blake around.
Yeah, Mr. Jakob, what have you just done? I've just wrung this cat's neck, Blake. There's nothing that can be done.
Oh, no. Do you know, but Blake properly for the very first time loosened up and was telling his own story with laughs, wasn't he? About the Machino shirt of his stepdad getting eaten by Dogzilla.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really nice to hear. It was Alistair and Jazza's company, but he obviously warms very much to Jazza. But it was great to hear him tell a tale and laugh about something.
It was much needed, wasn't it? Because like, do you remember Comic Relief has had to segue all the way from kind of like poverty porn and kind of famine porn, where they kind of do a kind of like a grotesque caricature of what Africa is to try and tug at your heartstrings, and now they try and tell a more well-rounded story about actually, yes, there's problems, but they're still people with their own, sense of humor and narratives and stuff. And I felt like we really needed Blake to stop being this kind of tissue thin caricature, because I think I complained about the accent, and it was more than because I didn't want to get too deep into it before, but I think it was kind of more than the accent. It was sort of partly that he was just kind of one-dimensional. He is victim. He says victim things, and like you're saying, Kerry, then we got to hear a bit more about his backstory and who he is, and get a feeling for him, and him at the hide when he's it still felt a bit kind of hackneyed, but kind of him loving being amongst nature, and obviously you can project his love of the peace and quiet onto the situation.
Yeah.
Still doesn't forgive him eating the Red Wings, but By the way, that bird that Jazza mentioned, the lesser spotted willow Thrussell doesn't bloody exist. I was in the Young Ornithologist Club and the RSPB. There's no
Oh.
such thing.
Were you always in a hide when you were littler then?
I was always getting a hiding, for that was fashionable in the 80s.
Oh, Matthew.
Well, I mean, don't no one go toe to toe with me for the tragic beating story. I will see anyone off, as you know, Kerry. Yeah.
It was fashionable. My parents used to put on rumours and like kick me around the kitchen.
Stop it.
Pick your soundtrack, Matthew. I don't want to pick your soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd have been born like 10 years later, it would have been Richard Marx. Karl Marx's great-grandson.
Well, there was that awful movie with the awful scene in it with Julia Roberts as the poor woman who would her husband would always put on a certain song when he was going to be subjected to spousal abuse. So
I think we're getting into we're getting into Rob Helen territory here.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm not making light of it, but just Matthew reminded me when he was saying that, like he made me think of the idea that there was a soundtrack for his beatings in the early 80s when it was all fine.
What are you referring to though, Peter?
There's a Julia Roberts movie.
Yeah, what is it?
I can't remember. There's a guy with a moustache who's an abusive husband, and she fakes her own death but he finds her ring in the toilet and then tracks her down, and she's in a nude town with a lovely man who's got blonde curly hair. It's been a long. I'll dig it out and I'll pop it on the old pod description.
Is it called
Ghost?
Is it?
I'm joking.
I thought it was Live Like You'll Die Tomorrow, Farm Like You'll Farm Forever.
No, that's the one where Brian tracks down every woman
in the county.
Imagine an episode of This Is Your Life with Brian Aldridge. Hi, Brian.
Do you remember we did some drilling in the top field?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you sprayed my pasture.
And then... Should we do the socials?
Yes.
Yeah. We don't want another one-star review criticising our potty mouths.
Yes, we do.
And Kerry, thank you for just proving it's not just the male participants, as I think it was said. But anyway,
silly Billy.
Yeah, Kerry's perfectly capable of being a foul-mouthed tarradin.
Twat. Yes.
Take that away from her. But yes. So Matthew, you said socials. Do you want to do your socials then?
I'll do my socials. I do the Instagram, which is at the Cider Shed Pod, and I do Facebook, which is the Cider Shed Podcast, and that's a Facebook group.
I reckon the Instagram needs some action on it.
Yeah.
Come on, love.
Okay, I hold my hands up.
I mean, at least our Porto picture could be put on there.
I put the Porto picture
I didn't
stories.
notice that.
In our stories,
that doesn't count.
That's how Instagram works, baby.
Get it on the main page as well.
Well, yeah, we have to. Yeah, we need some banners for that. But yeah, I put it in the stories. That's what all the kids are watching now.
Yeah, they disappear within about 5 seconds.
24 hours. They're all about the transient.
I know. I've done them. Yeah. Twitter is at the Cider Shed.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I'll tell you what. That Cider Shed Pod Twitter. Fucking hell, it sucks.
It does. No, it doesn't. We've got nearly 1,500 followers. Whoop, whoop.
No, good work, Kerry.
Big up. I will actually big up that as long as Kerry's slagging off the Instagram.
I'm not slagging it off. It's just it needs a bit of love.
Yeah, I know. I think last week I was a bit tied up because, I had people visiting and stuff. First week back at work, I was entertaining you, Kerry.
Yeah, sorry. So. It's my fault.
Yeah, blame Kerry.
I have the easiest time, I think, when it comes to all the communications. I have to do the emails at hello@thecidershed.com is our email address. And it's a pleasure to hear from you. I always try and respond quickly. I've been a bit slow recently, so I apologize for that. But please do get in touch. And we need some more feedback on the Warbis episode. We have now triggered our condition. We've doubled our original listenership, which, as I've always said, was very healthy. So please, anyone, just say whether you want it or not. We've had a lot of people giving us questions that they might want to hear, but basically we just need a sort of like a yes please or a no thank you, and we will get cracking. I've had a good week. Actually, do you know what? I think I've said this before, but I feel a bit lifted by this week. I thought it was a really good week of the Archers, and my enthusiasm has been brought right back up again.
Hurrah! That's good.
You know what I mean, though. Sometimes it does flag a bit, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. Which is funny you should say that. One of the days, can't remember which one, when I was doing the tweet along, I put, well, that was a right circular twirl of nothing.
Probably
So,
that was the episode where Ruth and Lillian were chatting, wasn't it?
yeah, probably.
I think
it
just
actually was.
Chelsea and Jazza, gave me what I
And
wanted.
no, come on, Russ.
Oh.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, Russ.
I just love him.
Russ, if you're out there, actor Russ.
I've written to him.
Why do I feel like everyone's finally come round to my way of thinking on this?
You are a very persuasive man when it comes to these things, Matthew.
Everyone liked Russ as a actor man, didn't they?
No, Kerry. Have you been on? I know you avoid that toilet on the internet, but there are a lot of people that hate Russ.
Obviously, they hate the character of Russ because he's done horrid things, but he's brilliant. I
will just finish the pod with a compliment to our listeners. I genuinely think that our listeners are not stupid enough to be. From all of the stuff that I see on Twitter, from all of the stuff that we get sent, I don't think our listeners are stupid enough to be able to, to sort of be like, oh, he's a nasty character, so I've got to dislike him. I think we have a better class of podder.
Yeah. Bravo, Peter. Well done. I agree.
And well done, Matthew, for being the OG original gangster in in Russ fandom.
For the dodgy Russ character, yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in.
See you next week.
Okay, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.